The bowl of fruit sits on your kitchen counter. Apples that have been there almost 2 weeks now, and they still look the same as the day you brought them home. No soft spots, no bruises. You set one in your hand this morning and noticed it felt strangely light, almost waxy on the skin. And you wondered, just for a moment, if something was wrong with it. If you want to understand why so much of the fruit in American supermarkets has stopped behaving like real food, do not look at the produce aisle for an answer, and do not look at the labels they print on the stickers. Look instead at what the Amish women in my community have been quietly doing in their own kitchens for over 200 years. Hello, friends. I am so glad you are here with me today. What I am going to share with you is not small. The fruit you put on your table every week is feeding the people you love most, your husband, your grandchildren when they come on Sunday afternoons, yourself.
And if that fruit has been picked too early, sprayed with things you cannot pronounce, and coated with a wax that keeps it shining for months, then the sweet thing you thought you were giving your family is something else entirely. Most doctors will not bring this up in your 15-minute appointment, not because they are hiding anything. It is simply not in the guidelines they were trained to follow. But this matters, because real food is what keeps a body of 75 years old strong enough to stay in her own home and lift her own great-grandchild without help. My name is Rebecca Yoder. I am a grandmother of Lancaster County, here in Pennsylvania. And for 65 years, I have cared for the women of our community through the foods my mother taught me to grow, ferment, and put up for winter. Her mother taught her, and her grandmother before that. 5 generations of plain women who never had a refrigerator full of supermarket fruit, and who lived to see their great-grandchildren grow tall. The old ones in our community always said that all sickness begins in the belly. The English researchers who came to study us in the 1980s were quite surprised by what they found in our gut health and our slow rate of certain cancers. They left with their notebooks full. We just kept doing what we have always done. My grandmother fed 7 children on the fruit she grew in her own orchard. I have watched 5 generations of Amish women in this county live well past 80 on this kind of food. Cancer of the colon, which I am told is common among the English, is rare among our folks. Diabetes is rare. The big diseases that take so many away too soon, we see far less of them. The old ones knew. The laboratories are only beginning to confirm what my grandmother kept in her root cellar. Now, of these 5 fruits I am going to share with you, one is going to surprise you. Most folks, perhaps 9 out of 10, get this one wrong. The order matters too, because each fruit teaches us something about the next. So please stay with me to the end. Before we go further, I would love to hear from you. Please leave a comment below and tell me your age and tell me which fruit you reach for most often when you go to the store. I read every single comment on this channel, and your answers help me know what to share with you next. In this video, I will walk you through 5 fruits that we Amish women in Lancaster County will not buy from the supermarket. The fruit that is picked so early it never develops the sugar God intended. The fruit that is dipped in a wax used to polish furniture. The fruit that travels for so many weeks across the ocean that almost nothing alive remains in it. The fruit that is sprayed many times before it reaches your hand. And the master fruit, the one that breaks my heart, because it is the one fruit she should have been growing in her own backyard. If you have not yet subscribed to this channel, would you do me a small favor and tap that button? It takes only a moment. So many of our older neighbors have written to me to say they thought they were already subscribed and were not. I do not ask for myself. I ask because there are many older folks who need to hear these things. Now let me tell you what we Amish women have been doing for over 200 years here in Lancaster County. Our community has lived on this land since 1720, when the first plain families came over from Switzerland and Germany. They brought their seeds with them, sewn into the linings of their coats. 200 years later, the great-great-grandchildren of those women still eat from the orchards their grandmothers planted. The old ones used to say that the fruit knows the woman who grew it. What they meant was simple. A fruit ripened on the tree, in the place where it was planted, by hands that knew it, was different from a fruit picked green and shipped across the ocean. They knew it in their bodies. The modern laboratories are slowly catching up. Researchers studying traditional eating patterns have found that fruit ripened on the vine contains far more antioxidants and far more living enzymes than fruit picked early and ripened with gas in a warehouse. The old ones only nodded when they heard. They had been watching this for centuries. Let us begin. The first fruit we never buy from the supermarket is the apple. Yes, the apple, sitting in nearly every shopping cart in America. We do not buy them from the store, and I will tell you why. A modern supermarket apple is picked in September, and you may eat it in May, 8 months in cold storage. To keep that apple looking firm and shiny, it is dipped in a wax, the same kind of wax used in some furniture polish. That wax seals the skin so the apple cannot breathe, and it also seals in any spray that was applied to it before harvest. The Environmental Working Group has placed apples at the top of their dirty produce list for many years now. Inside the body, an apple that has been waxed and stored for 8 months has very little of the polyphenols and very little of the living enzymes that a fresh-picked apple would have. For a woman of 75, this matters more than it does for the young. Your gut lining is thinner than it was at 30. Your liver works more slowly to clear the small chemicals that come in with each bite. The accumulation of these residues, day by day, year by year, can quietly raise inflammation in the body, and inflammation is at the root of so much of what ails us in our later years. What we do instead in our community is simple. We grow our own apple trees, or we buy from a roadside stand where the apples were picked that week. If you live in town, you can find them at a farmer's market in the fall, and you can store them in a cool corner of your basement. An apple grown without spray, picked ripe in October, will keep beautifully through January. The second fruit we will not buy is the strawberry. The big, perfectly red, perfectly shaped strawberries you see in plastic clamshells. They are almost always tasteless, watery, with that pale white inside. They are picked while still firm and pink, and they ripen in trucks. The Environmental Working Group lists the strawberry as the single most sprayed fruit in the American food supply. Beatrice, a woman from Chattanooga, Tennessee, who reads what I write each week, told me she had been buying those plastic boxes for her grandchildren every Saturday for 12 years. She was 68, and she had been struggling with stiffness in her hands and a deep tiredness in her afternoons that no nap could touch. What she had not considered was the small daily load of sprays going through her body. She switched, on my suggestion, to growing a small patch in her side yard and to buying frozen organic ones in winter. Within 4 months, she told me her morning stiffness had reduced by about 60%, and she could once again open the jar of jam at breakfast without calling for her husband. She wrote to me, "Rebecca, my hands feel like mine again." Strawberries were never meant to be eaten in February. They were a gift of June. A fruit so delicate, it has to be eaten within days of being picked. What we do is grow our own, from runners my mother gave me when I was a young bride, freeze them at peak ripeness in summer, and use them through the winter. If you cannot grow them, please look for organic frozen strawberries at the store. They were picked riper, frozen quickly, and they hold far more of what your body needs. The third fruit we never buy is the grape. I know this one will surprise some of you. Grapes seem so simple, sitting in their bunches, but the grape is a delicate fruit with a thin skin, and it absorbs whatever is sprayed onto it. Grapes are sprayed many times during their growing season, and many of those residues remain on the skin when you bring them home. Even washing does not remove all of it. The grapes you see in the store have also traveled often from very far away, South America, South Africa, many weeks on a boat. The natural compounds in grapes that researchers have studied for so long, the resveratrol and the polyphenols in the dark skin that support the heart, are very much reduced after such a long journey. For a woman in her 70s whose heart deserves every bit of true help, this is no small thing. Please speak with your doctor before making any change to your diet if you take blood thinners or heart medication, because grapes contain compounds that can interact with certain prescriptions. What we do is wait for grapes to come into season in late August and September, and we eat them then. We dry the rest. The raisins my grandmother put up in her pantry were sweet and dark and chewy, nothing like the dry, hard things in a cardboard box at the store. I want to pause here for a moment, friends. The women and the men who write to me each week ask the same question over and over. Rebecca, what do I do for my belly? My gut hurts after I eat. I am bloated. I am tired. And I tell them what I have come to land on after watching so many older bodies struggle with this same thing. Every habit I am sharing with you today works far better when the body is not fighting a fire underneath. That fire is inflammation, and the root of inflammation in older bodies, as the old ones taught us and the laboratories now confirm, lives in the belly. After 60, our bodies lose a great deal of the friendly bacteria we were born with, sometimes more than half by the time we reach 70. Probiotics alone are not enough. They need the prebiotic fiber to feed them, and they need what the researchers call postbiotics, which are the healing compounds the bacteria themselves produce when they are well fed. Without all three, you are planting seeds in dry soil. The product I have come to recommend to my own daughters is called BoochBod. It is a kombucha gummy, not a pill, because so many older folks I know cannot swallow capsules anymore. It contains all three: the prebiotic fiber, a clinically studied strain called lactospore, and a postbiotic called Postbiotics LM 1004. It also has a touch of slippery elm, which my grandmother grew at the back of her hollow, and a touch of dandelion root from the meadow. Over 30,000 people are already using it, and the link is in the description below this video. Please speak to your doctor before starting any supplement. Now back to our fruits. The fourth fruit we Amish women will not buy is the blueberry. The same story, friends. The blueberries you find in plastic boxes in January came from Peru or Chile. They were picked while firm. They traveled for many weeks. By the time you eat them, the antioxidants the blueberry is famous for have been deeply reduced. A wild blueberry picked in Maine in July contains, by recent research at Tufts University, somewhere around twice the antioxidant capacity of one shipped in winter from another continent. The old ones, of course, did not need a laboratory to know this. They simply knew their own blueberries tasted of something the others did not. What we do is freeze them in summer. A bag of wild blueberries put up in July will feed you all the way through to the next harvest. If you have a small piece of land, blueberries grow beautifully, and the bushes live for 40 years. My own bushes were planted by my mother in 1972, and they still feed my grandchildren today. The same hens that feed you now have been fed by those same plants for 53 years. The fifth fruit, and this is the one that breaks my heart, the one I called the master fruit at the start, the tomato. I know many will say the tomato is a vegetable, but it is a fruit, friends, a true fruit, and it is the fruit that should be growing in every backyard and on every porch in America. There is no fruit more cheaply and more easily grown by an older woman with a small pot of soil and a sunny window, and there is no fruit more deeply changed for the worse by the supermarket. The tomato you buy at the store in February was grown in a hothouse, picked green, gassed with ethylene to turn it red, and shipped across the country. It tastes of water and cardboard. It contains a fraction of the lycopene and the carotenoids of a true ripe tomato. Lycopene has been studied for many years for its support of the heart in women and the skin against the sun's damage in all of us. I will tell you about Eleanor. She lives in Bozeman, Montana, and she was a librarian for 41 years before she retired. She wrote to me at 69 years old, saying her afternoons had become impossible. She would eat her lunch and feel a heaviness come over her that she could not push through. She had to lie down on her sofa for an hour before she could do anything else. She had been buying her tomatoes at the supermarket year-round. I asked her to do something simple Stop buying tomatoes in winter. Eat them only in summer, from her own pot on the porch. In their place, eat the foods that ripen in winter. Squashes, apples from her root cellar, pears. Within 3 months, she wrote back, her afternoon heaviness, by her own measure, had dropped by about 70%. She told me, Rebecca, I had forgotten what it felt like to have a real afternoon. The body, you see, was made to eat with the seasons. When we eat the tomato in February, we are asking the body to do something it was not designed to do. The old ones in our community ate from the root cellar and the pantry in winter, never from the orchard, and their bodies stayed steady through the long cold months. What we do is simple. We grow tomatoes in summer from seeds my grandmother saved. The same tomato, season after season, for 140 years now. Weaken the rest into jars for winter, and what we eat in January is the tomato we put up in August. Now, after 65 years of watching what truly works, let me share a few things that go beyond the fruits themselves. First, pair your fruit with a small bit of healthy fat, a tablespoon of butter on your apple, a handful of walnuts with your blueberries, a slice of cheese with your grapes. The fat helps your body absorb the fat-soluble nourishment in the fruit, and for older folks whose digestion has slowed, this small change can nearly double what your body actually takes in. Second, eat your fruit before your meal, not after. The old ones knew this. A small bit of fruit on an empty stomach digests cleanly. A bowl of berries after a heavy supper will sit and ferment in your belly through the night. Third, the skin is where the medicine lives. If the fruit is clean and unsprayed, eat the skin. Most of the polyphenols, most of the fiber, most of what your body needs is in that thin layer. Fourth, if you cannot grow your own and cannot find local, the freezer aisle is your friend. Frozen organic fruit was picked riper than fresh. It was frozen within hours. It costs less, and it lasts. Now let me tell you the 3 mistakes I see folks make when they begin to change how they buy fruit. Mistake 1. They throw out everything in the kitchen and start over in one day. Please do not do this. The body of a 70-year-old does not change overnight, and neither should her pantry. Begin with 1 fruit. Replace 1 supermarket fruit with 1 local or frozen organic fruit. The next month, replace another. Slow change is the only change that lasts. Mistake 2. They buy organic at the supermarket and think they have done everything. Organic in the supermarket is better than the alternative, but the fruit was still picked early and shipped far. If you must choose between organic from another continent and conventional from a farm down the road, please choose the local fruit and wash it well. Mistake 3. They believe fruit is only useful in the morning. Many older folks I know have been told to avoid fruit at night because of the sugar, but a small bowl of berries at dinner with a bit of cream is a beautiful thing for the body and for the spirit. The old ones often ended their evening meal with fruit. It calmed the belly and brought a sweetness to the close of the day. Friends, I want to gather all of this up for you now. What we are talking about today is the mornings still ahead of you. The morning you walk out to your back porch in your slippers with your coffee, and your tomato vine has set its first red fruit of the summer, and you pick it warm in your hand and bite into it, standing right there at the railing. We are talking about the afternoon your great-granddaughter sits on your kitchen floor, 4 years old, and eats blueberries from your hand, one by one. The same blueberries your own mother grew from bushes she planted before you were born. That is what is at stake. The body God gave you is still good. Even at 75, the body knows how to heal itself when we give it real food and real rest. It is never too late. You are the woman who has been keeping her family fed for 50 years, and you are still her. Begin where you are. Let me lock this in for you. Number 1, the apple, from a roadside stand or a tree of your own. Never the waxed kind from the store. Number 2, the strawberry, organic frozen in winter, your own patch in summer. Number 3, the grape, in season only, late August and September, or as raisins put up at home. Number 4. The blueberry. Frozen wild from Maine in winter. Fresh local in summer. Number 5. The tomato. Grow it in summer. Can it for winter. Never buy it in February. If this video has helped you, please subscribe so that I may keep sharing what my mother and grandmother taught me. And please share it with your sister or your oldest friend. Tell me in the comments, which of these 5 fruits surprised you most? I read every single comment on this channel, and your stories help me know what to share next. And if you would like to take a look at the BoochBod that I mentioned earlier, the link is waiting for you in the description below. Whenever you are ready. Until next time, friends, may your kitchen be warm and your family be near.